Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Spot Connection with the weekly comic book roundup, and we're going to kick things off this time around with Guardians of the Galaxy number 12. So, where we left off, Guardians had pretty much all been defeated by the Universal Church of Truth, the exception of Rocket, whose life support battle armor was horribly damaged. And well, so Rocket gets out of what's left of the armor and goes to try to try to go out a hero. So we begin on board the ship, and Jason Spartoy is saying that he's giving a speech to his army of destroyer messiahs. They're about to harvest a good chunk of life energy from Earth, and something goes wrong. Turns out Rocket has made it into the engine room and is mucking around with everything. And so troops get sent down to stop Rocket. However, Rocket's got a plan and he manages to free all of the Guardians. So one of the Draxes picks up, but turns out that the light drive is being powered by having grabbed all of the various destroyer messiahs, or, well, most of them. One of them picks up Rocket, shoves his face into the energy field, trying to convince him to give in to the church, give him his will to live, his will to live, so on, and Rocket spits in his face. And then the Guardians and their allies then stand in front of Drax, and well, yeah. They wreck his house, with Moondragon basically giving Drax all of everyone else's memories of him. Okay, this is you. This is you. This is you. This is who you are, not this. And Groot makes a new, turns himself into a mech suit for Rocket. And the upload of memories seems to have done the trick for Drax. But the Church's troops are on their way, and however, Star-Lord has Lockjaw teleport them to the Bowie. And the ship goes to its original point in time. Billions of years from now, the end of everything. And it it becomes a callback to the Thanos Wins arc from the Thanos ongoing last year by, well, Donny Cates. Then on Half World, uh, turns out they're taking Rocket to to the hospital, and the Guardians are all informed that Rocket's going to be okay. And he should recover nicely, and so he asked what I missed for the last year, and cool. Then it's first we get splash pages harkening, concerning, well, the Thanos Wins series, the first Cosmic Ghost Rider miniseries, Death of the Inhumans, Silver Surfer Black, and everyone's just like, nah, not much. Though Silver Surfer does mention that he traveled to the dawn of time and see his life across the galaxy, only to give birth to his own home planet and then be reborn. But Beta Ray Bill cuts him off and says, nothing really, no. And Rocket says, hey, I'm gonna beat this. I'm gonna get better, get back on my feet because there's a whole galaxy out there to guard. And, well, can't do it lying in bed. But Peter tells him that tells Rocket to take his time getting better, And the series ends with the Guardians gathered around Rocket's bed. That's it. Next up, we've got Revenge of the Cosmic Ghost Rider, #1. Well, where we last saw the Cosmic Ghost Rider was actually in Guardians, which I just went over. So we begin at a Shi'ar Supermax Intergalactic prison. Old Frank's being brought in. By the Shi'ar. Supposedly the Imperial Guard got sent after him. It was Gladiator himself that passed judgment. And we get a few shots of his intergalactic exploits, like killing some Skrulls in the Galactic Senate. Killing some criminals in a space bar. Killing some Shi'ar war criminals. So he arrives. It turns out that the brother of one of his targets is there, and so Cosmic Ghost Rider's up. And he just starts killing his way through the prison. So the prison is destroyed, and months later, the skull is found in the wreckage. And amongst the salvage crew is Cammy. Briefly served as a sort of sidekick to Drax. Well, it turns out that skull was found was, of course, the skull of Frank Castle. And, well, he manages to rebuild himself, starts killing his way through the salvage crew, while Cammy works out, showers, and yeah. Then Cosmic Ghost Rider rolls. When she tries to get hold of the captain and finds him dead, and then runs into Cosmic Ghost Rider. Only to realize that Cammy's an innocent. But someone's watching them. Cosmic King, who, it would seem, has a means of traveling to the Hotel Inferno, where he asked Mephisto for something: the mortal soul of one Frank Castle. That's where the comic ends. That's where the main story is. There is, however, also a backup story. Back on Earth in New York, Cosmic Ghost Rider is visiting the graves of his family when the Punisher arrives, armed for bear, and wanting to talk to, well, himself from the future. And Frank's smart. He's using consecrated hellfire rounds to take down, or to go after Cosmic Ghost Rider. And it basically boils down to Frank saying, they're dead. The deaths of the Castle family are Cosmic Ghost Rider's fault. He time traveled. Why didn't he save them? Though, of course, there is a reason. And Cosmic Ghost Rider tells Punisher that, we deserve to be punished too. But as Ghost Rider Destroy the Marvel History potentially points out, it's a point in time that the Watcher needed to happen. So that's where things end. Moving on to Annihilation Scourge Omega. Looks like we got 2 Omegas this week. Well, we kind of got 3, but that's something different. So where we left off, okay. Nova actually kind of ran off after getting up close and personal with the Cancerverse again because of the time he spent in the Cancerverse. So it's understandable. Oh, right. The Cancerverse invaded the negative zone. Nihilus came to the positive zone to ask for help. Others from the negative zone went to the Fantastic Four for help. Annihilus got Nova to help. The Fantastic Four agreed to help as well. Beta Ray Bill fought some of the Cancerverse denizens and ended up sacrificing Stormbreaker to send the Sentry, not the Cancerverse Sentry, but the actual Earth 616 Sentry back into the negative zone. And Silver Surfer bonded with Robert Reynolds, the human portion of the Sentry, to potentially take down the Sentry. Alright, so we begin in the negative zone, 74 days into the incursion. The FF are leading their forces against the Cancerverse, and they come across Lockjaw and Beta Ray Bill, who are tracking down Bill's hammer. Around that same time, the Silver Sentry shows up, explaining what's going on, the basics, kind of getting himself, catching everyone up with what's going on with him. Anyway, Bill goes and grabs his hammer, becomes, all powered up. It turns out that the planet is being kept invisible by none other than Invisible Woman. But it's quite the effort, and they've been found by the Sentry and his forces. But they have set up a gateway. However, turns out that all of the other cosmic heroes have banded together and came to the port. I guess went to 4 Yancey Street and came to the portal. Also with them are the new warriors. Cloak, Dagger, Rage. Both Novas are present. Namorita. We got some of the. We got a few heralds. We got Darkhawk. We got Thunderstrike. Yeah, we got quite the lineup. And so, Invisible Woman lets her force field down, and the heroes go after him. Or go after the Cancerverse and the Sentry. With Silver Surfer well, the Silver Sentry, basically ramming into the void, getting out with leaving the Robert Reynolds portion in there as well. But Nova is basically baiting the Cancerverse away, and Silver Surfer's helping, and they're. But yeah, he gets wrapped up in it, and takes the Cancerverse into him. The Cancerverse and its forces into himself, and then the Sentry destroys it. And so, the Sentry stood watch over the universe that he almost destroyed, and there was a big toast to Nova and his sacrifice. And in the negative zone, the Silver Surfer stands with Annihilation. Annihilation resurrects Nova, free of the Cancerverse infection. And then that's probably tells Nova and Surfer to get the hell out of his dimension. And that is where everything ends. Moving on to Gwenpool Strikes Back number 5. Where we left off, Gwenpool had organized a contest of champions, so to speak, on an island that suddenly existed, and well, it seems like. And as the issue ended, she was now forced to go up against Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. So we begin with a little interlude with Gwenpool sneaking into the Punisher's room, discovering a whole bunch of bees under his bed and letting them loose on him a few times over. Well, she then goes back to her little, to her private island, and apparently there's a pressure cooker situation in the VIP box, in part because of the Hulk. And so Hulk gets dropped. Massive chunk of nuggets dropped on the Hulk. Cap and Iron Man are arguing and end up getting stuck in a we will get along shirt. And she manages to will into existence a way out. Goes back to Kamala and tries to convince her to actually fight, but they talk. And Kamala just wants to help her. And so they talk. Talk about who she is, and maybe it turns out she actually is a mutant. And so Gwenpool forfeits to Kamala. Starts heading off in the, between spaces, but there's the Krakoan gateway, which she jumps through and ends up on Krakoa. Meaning she's a mutant. So Wolverine's there to meet her, and so hey, you're safe here. You gotta worry about what's behind you. And Quentin's also there to be, well, Quentin. Though she's quite happy to see him. She does jump into her white space and has some more additional monologuing. And that, yes, there are potential more stories with her. As well as a Dawn of X style write-up on Gwenpool. It's funny, she's a comic fan from the same Earth as you, who chose to live in Earth 616 forever. Cheerful, sweet, goofy, and earnest when not burdened by the existential exhaustion of being a real person in a comic book world. Friends: Cecil, Batroc, Terrible Eye, Jeff the Landshark, Deadpool, Squirrel Girl, Quentin Quire. Enemies: depends on which book. Crushes: depends on which book, also redacted, and sometimes Quentin. Family: two parents left behind in the real world and a brother named Teddy whom we never quite resolved things with, I'm realizing. And she may or may not have a new mutant ability. It's not her job to figure out. It's the writers now. Have fun. And she walks off into the Looney Tunes logo, basically. The tunnel that Twiggy Pig pops out of. See? And that's where the series ends. So we'll see what the future holds for Gwenpool. Anyways, next up, we've actually got ourselves a holdover from last month. There were issues getting it when it initially came out, but History of the Marvel Universe, number 5. Now, about History of the Marvel Universe number 4, we left off, if I remember correctly, around the time of Onslaught. And the supposed death of the Fantastic Four. So we go back to Franklin and Galactus talking. And starts off talking about the Thunderbolts. Next up is the Grant Morrison X-Men run. Then the Return of the Sentry, as well as Jessica Jones. Also the Ecstatics, the Runaways. The events of Avengers Disassembled, the forming of the New Avengers, House of M, the return of Bucky, Planet Hulk, the superhero Civil War, Falcon and Winter Soldier, who would later become Captain America himself. Falcon and Winter Soldier taking on bringing Red Skull to justice for masterminding Cap's death, and Winter Soldier becoming Captain America himself. World War Hulk, Annihilation and Annihilation Conquest, Secret Invasion, Norman Osborn's Dark Reign, Messiah Complex, Captain America's Return, The Siege of Asgard, The Heroic Age, Carol Danvers taking on the mantle of Captain Marvel. Surprisingly, Fear itself is completely glossed over. Spider Island. Avengers vs. X-Men. The original 5 X-Men coming to the present. Age of Ultron. And that's the story the issue ends on. I'm still kind of... Sadly, it glossed over. There's a lot. There were a few other. Well, at least the Second Coming got glossed over, but yeah. Well, so did Messiah War and Necrosha, and yeah. Basically, most of the Messiah arcs from the X books got glossed over. They were just bringing up the first part, Messiah Complex. Next up is History of the Marvel Universe, number 6. The finale. Also, it should be noted that they do get things a little off, but that can be forgiven with a explanation of, oh yes, well Galactus is things are starting to blend together for Galactus. So, we pick up with, like I mentioned, Galactus, we're getting to the end for Galactus. And he tells Franklin he'll continue on with the story, telling the story, as long as he is able. And so we get the events of Infinity, including the Aftermath, which included the Terrigenesis waves on Earth, which put most notably Kamala Khan through Terrigenesis. Then we have the events of Original Sin, wherein Nick Fury murdered the Watcher and stole his eyes. And it was also revealed during this that Fury was had a secret job, that of man on the wall. Basically, he was supposed to keep an eye, supposed to watch and make sure that the world, supposed to be watchful of oncoming of extraterrestrial threats to the world. There's also the Jane Foster's tenure as Thor, and how it came to be that Thor could no longer lift his hammer. During the Original Sin, Nick Fury said to Thor, Gore was right, explaining that Gore, the God Butcher, was right, and that no god, including the Asgardians and Thor himself, were as worthy of veneration and power as they believe themselves to be. Next up, we've got Sam Wilson's tenure as Captain America, Superior Spider-Man, as well as Spider-Verse, the first Spider-Verse story, the recent Secret Wars story, as well as the Future Foundation doing what they can to rebuild the lost realities and construct new ones for a while. The formation of the new champions, as well as just, various newer heroes that have appeared, such as Ghost Spider, Silk, X-23, and Gwenpool, and Moon Girl and Double Dinosaur, though Double Dinosaur was not so new. Then we've got the Inhumans versus X-Men. followed by Secret Empire. I guess Gorgon was part of that. The recent reformation of the Avengers and the coming of the final host. The Return of the Fantastic Four. War of the Realms. As well as the Aftermath. House of X. And then the Age of Khonshu, the interstellar reign of the half-breed, the rise of the outlaw generation, the King in Black, Null, the wedding of Tony Stark and Emma Frost, the tragic fate of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones' second child, the Defenders of Tomorrow, Threadneedle, Warbird, the fate of Mephisto. Of course, he also recalls the era of corrupt mega corporations, the Great Purge of Heroes, a time when these global entities used Sentinels as their weapons, only for those same Sentinels to turn back upon them, seizing control of the United States until the few mutants surviving were able to topple them. The corporations expanded their global control using tools such as the cyborg soldiers known as Deathlocks, eventually replacing governments completely, with wealth and power being consolidated into small groups of with small upper class, leaving most humans to live as slaves defended by Spider-Man of 2099 and others. Also, rebels such as Machine Man were forced to scavenge technology just to survive. Killraven's Martian-dominated future comes up, as does Maestro's Future Imperfect. The 30th century of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. The 31st century, wherein of which Kang the Conqueror is native, and in which Apocalypse attempts to rule. However, it becomes time, and Galactus passes on the giant helmet to Franklin, who then puts it on and remembers all the heroes. In fact, it says, even in Rebirth you will not forget, this I promise. You will remember a cosmos full of beings who strove with every moment, every breath, to bring light and hope to its darkest of corners. Regardless of their origins, regardless of the mark they left, large or small, each one understood the single truth that defined their universe. That with great power there must also come great responsibility. Let their lives, their adventures, their triumphs inspire you. Inspire you all the rest of your days. Together they brought about a thing of wonder, a universe of marvels. And so Franklin puts on Galactus' helmet and becomes the new Galactus. And that is the end of History of the Marvel Universe. Alright, that'll be it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I put new content. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.